It is 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Donald Trump welcomes a Supreme Court ruling which limits challenges to his executive orders.
We can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis.
But critics warn it marks a terrifying step towards authoritarianism in America. Also ahead. Sir Keir Starmer defends his U-turn welfare cuts, insisting his watered-down plans strike the right balance.
Drop it! And they're gone, see! Drop! And they're gone, they're gone! Drop it!
The parents of a schoolboy murdered by a man with a sword in East London welcomes the 40-year sentence given to their son's killer.
Daniel was taken from us in a way that no family should ever have to endure.
The organisation distributing aid in Gaza dismisses claims hundreds of Palestinians have been killed while trying to access food as disinformation. And we will take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through until midnight. Good evening. President Trump has welcomed a Supreme Court ruling which limits the ability of judges to challenge his orders. He says it's a monumental victory, and his Attorney General says it will stop a barrage of injunctions against the president's plans. But Democrats warn the judgment marks an unprecedented and terrifying step towards authoritarianism. Our US correspondent Mark Stone has our top story.
When he calls a news conference with just an hour's notice, you know he thinks it is a moment.
Well, this was a big one, wasn't it? This was a big decision.
A rare presidential appearance in the White House press room, because this is a significant victory for the president, and he knows it.
Thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people.
For once, the news had come not from the White House itself, but from the Supreme Court. A 6-3 majority ruling from the nation's top judges, which concluded that federal judges have been overreaching in their own rulings. Since the start of his second term, federal judges have sought to block elements of President Trump's policy plan, ruling that his executive action is illegal or unconstitutional. Much of the focus has been on Trump's immigration policies, the rounding up of undocumented migrants, detaining them and deporting them without due process. Not constitutional, not American, said federal judges.
Well, I think taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous. This is such a big day. This is such a big day.
So what happens now? Well, I think we should expect that Donald Trump, with the enthusiasm and the bounce that we saw in that news conference, to press on with his agenda, and he will face far fewer blocks.
That's a good one. Birthright.
This ruling was prompted by an executive order issued by President Trump to end birthright citizenship, that constitutional right to be an American if born here. A federal judge froze the decision. That may now not stand. The most senior Democrat in the land was to the point on what he thinks all this means, calling it an unprecedented and terrifying step towards authoritarianism, a grave danger to our democracy and a predictable move from this extremist MAGA court. By weakening the power of district courts to check the presidency, the court is not defending the Constitution, it's defacing it, Chuck Schumer said. This ruling hands Donald Trump yet another green light in his crusade to unravel the foundations of American democracy. The focus now for those who deplore this decision, beyond protesting, will be to apply class action, to file lawsuits on behalf of a larger group of people. But outside the Supreme Court, the protesters reflected in number an opposition movement lost in how to oppose this presidency.
Mark Stone joins us now live from DC. Mark, great to have you with us. Look, we've seen some of the protests, we've heard some of the anger from the Democrats there, but is there anything that can actually be done now to stop the president, as Chuck Schumer described, taking America towards authoritarianism?
Well, the detail of the decision by the Supreme Court justices shows that there are avenues, class action, as I said in my report there, by applying the law not to individual cases, but to a larger group of people. There is an avenue by which those that oppose Donald Trump's decisions going forward might be able to use the courts to slow him down or indeed to stop him. But there is no question that the decision today in a Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, which, as we know, is weighed towards Conservatives, will make Donald Trump's job easier. I mean, two observations I would make. The first is that I guess this is part of the problem of where in America judges are seen to be left or right. They are appointed by either Democrats or Republicans. So in that sense, the judicial pillar, the judicial branch of power here in the United States, at the top, at the Supreme Court, they have political agendas, although they would say that they do not. But still, their political views are aligned one way or the other, simply because of the way that they are appointed. That's the first observation. The second one I would make is that it is striking that the opposition here in America is kind of rudderless. They are lost. I guess it is the mechanics and the makeup of the American political system, which means that there is no obvious opposition leader, opposition figure in the United States, behind whom those who deplore what Donald Trump is doing are able to gather. And so while, yes, we have seen opposition movements and protests, big protests around the country, the No Kings protests, there is still not this sort of wide movement of people who can get together and really, go against what they see as Donald Trump almost becoming some sort of an emperor. That sort of protest movement may come. But for the time being, Donald Trump believes that because he won the election, he has the majority of people behind him. He believes he should be able to force through what he thinks that people across the country, a majority of people, voted for.
He's pushing ahead with that, isn't he, Mark? And Mark, look, he's had a busy few days, hasn't he? As you said, rare appearance in the press room earlier today. He was in the Oval Office as it was signed a peace agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. He also talked about Canada and cutting off trade talks with them, and had time to talk about Gaza and the potential of a ceasefire there.
Who'd believe that it was just a week ago, less than a week ago, that he was his planes were bombing Iran? It seems like a very long time ago now. That issue, a quick fix maybe, but he has solved it for now, temporarily. And news this afternoon on two fronts, as you say, Canada and trade. The Canadians have announced a digital services tax against the United States. Within minutes, Donald Trump said, fine, in that case, all our trade agreements and trade talks, they're off. And instead, we're going to impose massive tariffs on the Canadians. That's the first bit of news this afternoon. The second is this suggestion from the president that within a week there will be a ceasefire in Gaza. That would be remarkable. It would be another massive moment, a hugely welcome moment for the people of Gaza, and a win for the president. We know that behind the scenes his conduits have been working, trying to do a deal with Hamas, with the Israelis, to find some sort of peace process to get the hostages out and to bring, if only a temporary peace to the people of Gaza, a peace nonetheless. So watch this space on Gaza over the coming days.
Certainly will. Right, Mark Stone for us in Washington, D.C. Thank you for now. Now here, Sir Keir Starmer has defended his U-turn on welfare cuts, insisting the plans now strike the right balance. The Prime Minister had been forced to water down the proposed cuts in the face of a major backbench rebellion. Our political correspondent, Ali Fortescue, reports.
This is what a U-turn looks like.
Having listened, we've made the adjustments.
Defied by almost a third of their own MPs.
We have listened to people. We have engaged with them.
The opposition in full attack.
If they can't solve minor problems, how are they going to deal with the big ones?
An extraordinary government climb down on their flagship welfare policy now confirmed.
We've talked to colleagues who've made powerful representations, as a result of which we've got a package which I think will work and we can get it right. And for me, getting that package adjusted in that way is the right thing to do. It means it's the right balance and it's common sense that we can now get on with it.
His most damaging U-turn yet was confirmed in the early hours. The concessions mean that those that claim PIP now are exempt, as well as people that currently claim the health element of universal credit and those with severe conditions. Only people that start claiming these benefits after November 2026 will face cuts. It's a considerable climb down, but it might not help people like Gareth.
Get that filled up for me.
He has 4 children with disabilities, some who'll soon be unprotected new adult claimants.
My message to the government is to, quite clearly, to start thinking about the language that they're using and put a little bit of humanity into the argument and think about the people that are affected by this, people that can't work, people that are trying their best to be able to work as much as they can, a future generation of what are now effectively children are going to be affected by this.
Do you think it is healthy?
Yeah. A rebellion born in constituencies, playing out in Westminster. Ministers expect the bill will now pass Parliament.
The problems are far from over for the government. The Prime Minister's authority has been badly dented. So many people are asking, why did this come to this? There were warnings. What does all this say about party management? And then, of course, there is the money, the £5 billion that Rachel Reeves hoped to save with these welfare reforms.
How much are these concessions going to cost the Chancellor?
So we estimate that the concessions announced today to both personal independence payment and the health element of universal credit will cost the government around £3 billion by the end of the decade. The government kind of hoped when they announced the suite of welfare reforms a few months ago at the spring statement that they would save around £5 billion in total from the welfare system by the end of the decade. After taking into account these concessions, that's more like £2 billion, so more than half of their savings look like they're going to be wiped away.
The Prime Minister's spokesperson says the savings will be fully funded in the budget. They're not commenting on tax, but it is the political cost that will be harder to bear. A week on the world stage, a U-turn in slow motion. These last few days will haunt the Prime Minister. Ali Fortescue, Sky News, Westminster.
Let's go live now to Downing Street and bring in our political correspondent, Serena Singh. Serena, good evening to you. So, look, concessions made, but there's still a lot of anger on the backbenches. Just how damaging has this all been for the Prime Minister?
Well, Number 10 think they've done enough to stave off the rebellion. Keir Starmer accepted today that concessions had been made, and he said they have struck the right balance. But remember, this was a broad church of rebels. This wasn't just left-leaning, right-leaning, any one tribe. It even had committee chairs. So it was a real broad church of them, and he only had one day to turn it around, his biggest rebellion yet. Where there's still trouble for Keir Starmer are two ways. Firstly, the money. This might cost him £3 billion. Remember, he wanted to save £5 billion a year. That's what the Chancellor has now got to plug a hole for. The government says even with these changes, it will be fully funded and it will be set out in the budget, but they're not commenting on tax, so there might be an indication that might have to give. Secondly, the Prime Minister's authority has now been tested and his credibility has really taken a hit. Some are really confounded how it got to this. Even when the welfare bill was first pitched, MPs said they couldn't support it. So what does that say about party management, that the rebellion had got so bad and so big before eventual climb downs were made? And they also potentially spell a weakness now. It's 3 U-turns that Keir Starmer has had on grooming gangs, on the winter fuel, and now this. His MPs might have clocked that the more you push this Prime Minister, the more you might get. So while Number 10 have staved off this rebellion, there may be more problems down the line.
May indeed. Serena, for now, on Downing Street, thank you. Now, a man has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 40 years for murdering a 14-year-old boy with a sword in East London. Marcus Monzo killed Daniel Andrew and injured 5 other people during a rampage that lasted 20 minutes in Hainault last April. Our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt, reports.
Line close, more units, more units!
This was Marcus Monzo in the moments after he'd attacked schoolboy Daniel Angerin. The killer held back police trying to help the teenager. Daniel, a talented pupil, was virtually beheaded in the attack. After Monzo's sentencing, Daniel's father spoke for the family.
Daniel was taken from us in a way that no family should ever have to endure. His life had so much potential ahead. He was gifted academically, was kind, and had a generous spirit.
Marcus Monzo attacked 6 victims that day. As police chased Monzo, he suddenly stopped, turned, and stabbed PC Yasmin Meacham Whitfield.
Police officer stopped! Police officer stopped! Right! Yas has been stopped! Stop! Are you okay?
Inspector Malloy Campbell arrived soon after. Monzo showed no sign of surrendering.
As I turned into the road, I could see Mr. Monzo in the distance facing officers with a large samurai sword.
The inspector ran at Monzo and raised his baton.
Tourniquet for the governor, quick!
The blade came down my arm without touching the actual flesh, but sliced through my sleeve and then caught my hand on the way out. So it went very, very deep into the hand. So at that point, I was simply going to lose too much blood, and so I had to withdraw.
Right, drop that now! Drop it! Drop it now! Drop it!
Monzo was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 40 years. The judge blamed his psychotic state on his cannabis use.
You had no reason to believe that cannabis would lead you to commit violent offences, still less the murderous ones of which you've been convicted. But you had some warning of its adverse effect on you. You knew it made you paranoid and could lead at least to panic attacks.
IT engineer Henry Polania still wonders how he survived at all after Monzo broke into his home and attacked him and his wife Carolina in their bed.
He grabbed the sword with both of the hands and went backwards with strange force and trying to cut the head off my wife. I was like, I can't let this happen. In my mind, I was like, I can't let this happen. So I just tried to stop him, pull my hands towards the blade and stop him.
He tried to punch Monzo but couldn't make a fist.
He looked at my hand and it was all open. I could see my bones. I was bleeding. At that moment, I thought, I was like, oh my God, this is not a dream. It's a real life. It's going to kill us.
He believes Monzo spared the family only because their terrified daughter, then aged 4, began to cry. Monzo, a Spanish-Brazilian national, will be in his late 70s before he's eligible for parole. The judge told him he might never be released. Martin Brunt, Sky News at the Old Bailey.
Now, the head of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a controversial organisation that's backed by Israel and the United States to provide food aid to Gazans, has told Sky News there's a campaign to shut it down. Johnny Moore, who served in the first Trump administration, called UN data on the number of civilians killed near their facilities disinformation. Well, the United Nations says that at least 410 Palestinians have been killed seeking food since Israel lifted its 11-week blockade on the 19th of May. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says that at least 549 people have lost their lives. Tom Cheshire reports now from Jerusalem.
Palestinians are coming for food and they are finding bullets. A bullet whistles past and they duck for cover. This was filmed on Thursday morning near the Netzarim corridor in the middle of Gaza, the approach to a food distribution site run by Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. GHF has previously denied there have been any incidents or fatalities at or near its sites. But this was Friday morning in the same area, near the GHF site. The man on the right was shot in the head. The UN says that more than 400 people have been killed seeking aid. But speaking to Sky News, the head of GHF said those numbers were disinformation.
Okay, this is an active conflict. Almost anything that happens in the Gaza Strip is gonna take place in proximity to something. And the sort of key piece of disinformation is, every single day, some figure comes out from the Gaza Health Ministry.
This was another GHF site in the south on Monday. Eyewitnesses, not the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, told Sky News that several people were killed. And the IDF has now said it is investigating reports of civilians being harmed approaching distribution centres. GHF is deeply controversial. Backed by Israel and the US, staffed by private ex-military contractors, it is an alternative to the pre-existing system administered by the UN and other humanitarian agencies. Critics say that under international law, humanitarian aid should be independent rather than under the control of a belligerent. Huda Abu Salim says she encountered gunfire at a GHF aid point earlier this week where she managed to get food. She has to pick out the stones before she can cook it.
All along the way, you're hiding. You hide here, then run, then hide again. At any moment, they might shoot you. You might make it back, or you might not. I witnessed death firsthand. Bodies lay bleeding on the ground all around me. This is not right. Food should be delivered to UN warehouses, and this entire operation must be shut down.
Israel says GHF is necessary because Hamas is seizing aid shipments, although it has not provided evidence. Some food is getting in, but not nearly enough. Only an average of 56 trucks per day, when the UN says the people of Gaza need hundreds. Arguments about disinformation are one thing, but that is the most basic of facts. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Now, a man has been found guilty of murdering his wife while she was pushing their 7-month-old son in a pram in Bradford. Kulsuma Akhtar had already fled to a refuge to escape hybrid Muslims' violence and controlling behaviour. She suffered more than 25 knife injuries. Katerina Vitozzi reports.
The prosecution dubbed him the smiling killer. Caught on CCTV, this is Habiba Mazum getting onto a bus, calm, composed, moments after stabbing his wife to death. Kulsuma Akhtar had thought she was safe. The 27-year-old had left Mazum described as a violent, abusive husband, moving cities to escape with their 7-month-old son. But Mazum tracked her down to Bradford, finding her with their son when she was out shopping.
He then tried to encourage Kulsuma back into the relationship, and when she dismissed that, he took the knife that he brought with him, secreted in his jacket, and he repeatedly stabbed her in front of horrified onlookers. He left her there to die. He walked away and he utilised public transport to facilitate his escape out of Bradford.
Mazum left his baby son in his pram next to his dying wife. He took public transport and headed south. He was found in Buckinghamshire by police 4 days later. Clean-shaven in an attempt to avoid detection, police told us he was trying to leave the country.
This case is shocking for its callous savagery and the way in which Mazum, over the course of this trial, had tried to blame his dead wife, saying that her refusal to return to the family home led him to kill her.
Kulsuma had previously reported Mazum to the police for threatening to kill her. 2 forces, West Yorkshire and Greater Manchester, have been cleared of any wrongdoing in that contact. Mazum will be sentenced next month. Katerina Vitozzi, Sky News in Bradford.
Now, police searching for a missing woman say they have found a body and charged a man with murder. 34-year-old Rianne Colson was last seen in Coventry in May, and concerns were raised when she failed to contact family on her birthday. Detectives say that a body was discovered in the village of Binley Woods, near to the city this afternoon. A 42-year-old man is due in court tomorrow. A woman and 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of a terror offence over a break-in at RAF Bryce Norton. 2 Voyager aircraft were damaged at the base in an action claimed by the campaign group Palestine Action. Police in LA are investigating a reported burglary in a home owned by Brad Pitt. NBC News are reporting that 3 people broke in through a front window and ransacked the property. It is the latest in a wave of burglaries in recent years targeting the homes of celebrities. And Lalo Schifrin, the composer of this, the theme to Mission Impossible, has died at the age of 93. He wrote more than 100 arrangements for film and television. He won 2 Grammys for this theme alone. Now, Sky News investigation has found less than 2% of traffic lights across the country have red light cameras. As police increasingly rely on footage shot by motorists to catch rule breakers, the family of a 9-year-old who was killed by a driver who ran a red light now want more people to install dash cams. Our chief North of England correspondent Greg Milam has the story.
How often do you see drivers do this? At this junction in Salford, you see people running red lights time after time after time. It's not just here, of course, and this is an offence that sometimes has the most awful of consequences.
She filled our lives with light. She was innocent, she was happy, you know, she loved dancing, she loved singing, she loved us.
Can you tell us what happened on that day?
Well, it was a normal Saturday morning. It was quite busy. We were going to go home via the school fair, and we got to the school crossing, which was behind the school, and you know, we pressed the button and we waited for the cars to stop. She took a couple of steps out in front because she was responsibly crossing, and I was encouraging her brother to catch up. And then in front of our eyes, he ploughed into her massively fast, and he carried her off on his wing mirror. And I've got this very clear image of her being swept off her feet. And then she tumbled off, and by the time I got to her, it was almost like she was gone.
Alice was 9 when she died. Her family wanted us to show this dash cam footage of that moment. You can see the light turn red and her family starts to cross. A car in the right-hand lane fails to stop. The light had been red for 7 seconds. Last month, Kadir Hussain was jailed for 8 years for causing Alice's death by dangerous driving.
It seems bizarre that you would take any risks, let alone breaking the law, in order to get somewhere slightly faster.
Yeah, the real risk isn't being caught. It is actually killing somebody. From my point of view, he's gratuitously killed my child. He slaughtered her in the street for nothing, for no reason at all. You know, he battered her to death, and you know, any adult should know that when you speed through a pedestrian crossing, there is a risk that you could batter somebody to death.
Alice's story, sadly, isn't the only one, and it's perhaps not surprising that drivers think they can get away with running red lights. We asked every council in the UK how many of their traffic lights had red light cameras on them. 157 responded, and the short answer is very few. There are only 5 in all of Scotland. West Northamptonshire turned all of theirs off in 2011. In London and Greater Manchester, fewer than 4% of traffic lights have a red light camera, and across the UK, just 1.5% do. Increasingly, you're more likely to be caught by another driver's dash cam. Cases like these released by Greater Manchester Police. It was that dash cam footage that was crucial in convicting Alice's killer.
We bought a dash cam after this happened, and we've reported 4 people who went through red lights.
And at the crossing where Alice died, there are now red light cameras.
I'm glad they're there. Now they've got the cameras, and it's cost whatever they would have cost, plus her life and my lifetime of grief, and Chris's and Joey's, and you know, our parents, and all the ripple effects that come out of a life without Alice in it.
Greg Milam, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in our press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the political commentator Adam Bolton and the columnist from the Daily Mirror, Susie Boniface. Guys, thanks for being with us. Among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Financial Times. Its headline, Starmer faces £4.25 billion fiscal hit after U-turn. We'll be right back.